Okay, well, let's get started here. Every once in a while, every once in a while, I get really down, and so to pick me up, Josh says, "Would you like to pray or preach?" So I said, "Sure." So I don't know if that worked or not, but I really look forward to preaching here whenever I get a chance. So this morning, I'm going to check your biblical IQ. So we're going to have a little test to start with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say an event or a phrase, and then you tell me who in the Bible comes to your mind. Okay? You got that? Just shout it out. If you're wrong, I'll ignore you. If you're right, okay. So the first one is the easy one. Forbidden fruit. Good. Okay. Now, if you aren't awake yet, now that we'll keep going. Okay. A burning bush. Good. Ark. Coat of many colors. Good, smart. Walls of Jericho. Josh hit the battle of Jericho. Okay, that's it. Jawbone of a donkey. Jawbone. Samson, right, jawbone. What do you do with it? Yeah, he killed 1,000 guys, Philistines with it. Okay. A talking donkey. That's it. Yeah. Big Shrek 27, I think it's okay. Yeah, no, that would be, you're right. Hanged himself. Walked on water briefly. Okay. Fiery furnace. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. Right. Okay. And here's one more. Lion's den. You all passed today, so pat yourself on the back. All right. Well, okay, we're okay now. Well, for many people, when you think of Daniel, that's the first thing and maybe the only thing that comes to their mind is, oh yeah, Daniel, he was the one that was thrown in the lion's den. Over the last, about, 8-10 weeks, I don't know how long it's been, we've been studying the book of Daniel on our men's Bible study on Tuesday nights. And so what we found in 10 weeks, I'm going to share with you in 10 hours. Okay, no, it's a short time. I have probably preached through Daniel a couple times. I've read through it, but something stuck out to me this time as we went through. It must be because of Mike's great leadership in teaching us. Where's Mike? He's out there. Oh yeah, he's out with the little kids. Okay. So I just want to. You get that? Okay. I'm just going to give you kind of the backstory to this as bring it up to where I want to speak this morning. Okay. Daniel and several of his other good-looking friends, Hebrew friends, who were highly intelligent, were taken from their homes in Jerusalem to Babylon when Nebuchadnezzar conquered Jerusalem. After 3 years of getting special treatment and foods, and although Daniel and his friends wouldn't eat their food, and being taught in the Babylonian literature and all that, Daniel and his 3 friends were brought before, along with all these other young men that they brought in, before Nebuchadnezzar to be examined. And as the scriptures say, Daniel and his 3 friends, who you probably don't know their real names, it was Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. We all know the Babylonian names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay, they're found wiser and of greater understanding than all the rest of the young men that Nebuchadnezzar has interviewed. And so he was so impressed with them that he gave them all positions of authority. In Daniel 1:9, Daniel had an understanding in all visions and dreams. So he was highly intelligent, God blessed him with this ability to understand and interpret dreams and visions. And so we have this young man who's super smart, probably good looking, young man. He's been given an honored position with the king and in the kingdom. And we discover, however, as you go through the book, that Daniel is able to keep his feet on the ground. He doesn't let his intelligence or his good looks, I really had trouble with that, or his position to cause him to get a big head and to, try to throw around his power and stuff. We find that he keeps his feet on the ground. He doesn't let any of this give him a big head, as I said. And throughout the book of Daniel, we find him demonstrating a quality of humbleness. And here's the question I want to ask. How was Daniel able to keep this quality of humbleness throughout his whole life? He lived late into his 80s. Well, you don't have to answer that. I'll give you the answer, okay? I believe it was because of his constant relationship and dependence upon God. And especially, I discovered as I was reading through this again, mostly through his life of prayer. Now you think, oh, prayer, that sounds like the dullest subject you can talk about. Prayer. Okay, we say our Now Our Lady's, and we say our prayers before breakfast, we've got lunch or dinner, and we pray whenever we have a need. And so, what more can you tell me about prayer? Well, I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm going to let Daniel talk to you about it. So there's three principles that I learned from Daniel as I studied it in his prayer life. The first one is the power of prayer partners. In Daniel chapter 2, I'll get back to 1 to 4. There we go. We read, Now in the second year of King Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king, and the king said to them, I have had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic, O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dreams, and we will give you the interpretation. So what we find here is Nebuchadnezzar has this dream. He calls all his magicians and astrologers and everybody else in. But for some reason, he leaves Daniel and his friends out of this. And he asks him, okay, tell me my dream and the interpretation. Now, that'd be like somebody coming up to me and saying, I had a dream last night. What was it? What was it? Well, I don't know. Do you know the interpretation? No, I don't know the interpretation. Tell me the dream. Maybe I can tell you the interpretation. But so none of these guys could do it. And this ticked Nebuchadnezzar off so much that he said, just kill them all. Kill all the wise men of the nation. If they're not wise enough to answer this and tell me what I dreamed, then I don't want them around. Well, we pick up the story then in Daniel chapter 2, verses 14 to 18. Should have kept my finger there. 14 to 18. Then with counsel and wisdom, Daniel answered Arioch, the captain. He came to find Daniel and his friends. He's going to take them out and kill them. Daniel says, what's going on? He tells them what's going on. And then the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon, and answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree from the king so urgent? Then Arioch made the decision known to Daniel. So Daniel went, I'm getting ahead of myself, let's keep going. So Daniel went in and asked the king to give him time that he might tell the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they might seek mercies from the God of heaven concerning this secret, so that Daniel and his companions might not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. The secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision, so Daniel was blessed the God of heaven. So what happens? Daniel asks for some time. He goes and asks Nebuchadnezzar, give me some time, and I'll come back and tell you what you want to know. But he didn't just depend upon his own wisdom. What does he do? He goes back and he talks to his friends. Despite his education, despite his abilities, Daniel knew that the very first thing he had to do was to pray. But he didn't pray alone. He sought the counsel of his friends who would pray along with him. You know, as I've gone through my life, I found that it's never good to face problems and challenges alone. It's a comfort to know that others are praying along with you. Don't you find that true? I had an old lady, Doris Dickinson, in one of my churches, that prayed for me every day for years, even after I left that church. And one day I found out that Doris had died. And I felt like somebody had just, some of my protection, some of my blessing had just gone because Doris was not praying for me. And so it's so important for us to have prayer partners, I believe. And so if you're part of a triad, that's a great place to start. You can share what your heart's problems are and talk to one another. And then they may give you some insight, but as you pray together, I believe God answers. The battle was won. This guy by the name of Strauss wrote this. The battle was won when Daniel prayed with his friends. Praying friends are a blessing, and in prayer meetings such as this, history has been made. Many years ago, long before most of you were born, I graduated from Tacoma Fall College back in 1981. How many here were born after 1981? See, most of you. Okay. And I was a Bible theology major, and the thing that I most feared was at the end of the year, the professors had you sign up, and you had to take what they called senior orals. And what they did was they brought you in, you put your suit and tie on, try to impress them, okay? And they would quiz you on everything that you were supposed to know from 4 or 5, or for me it was a little longer, years of college, okay? And they would quiz you on bibliology, theology, anthropology, eschatology, the whole gamut. And they wanted you to give them an answer for every one of their questions and give verse and chapter and everything for it. And I was scared to death. So I went in and I went through this. Some guys got through it in 20 minutes, took me a couple hours. And I struggled through it. And got done, and I thought, whew, I'm glad that's over. They said, give us about an hour, we'll give you your exam mark. And so I came back later, looked at it, and they said, well, you did all right, but not good enough. So we want you to take it all over again. Here it's in May, it's close to, it's April, it's close to graduation. You know, I'm anxious. Actually, the candidate that had a church, Avis, called me because they didn't know anything about my theology skills and everything. Okay. And so I went home that night and I was just down and I was miserable. I had a basket out in my backyard there, and for about an hour I just went out and shot baskets, and jumped up and grabbed the rim because I couldn't jump high enough to dunk it anymore. And I was so frustrated. That night I went to prayer meeting at the Tacoma Alliance Church, and they had a lot of people came to prayer meeting back then. And after the pastor gave us, Earl Draven gave his little speech, we divided into prayer groups. And you kind of normally just went with the same group all the time. So I'm going to this prayer group, and there's Bible theology majors, or there's professors from the college attending there, and they break off, and they go with us into our prayer groups. And I was just so overwhelmed by grief that I was going to take this test again, that I was just pouring my heart out to God there. Not telling anybody in particular what the problem was. I just, oh God, what do I got to do, and when it was my turn to pray. After it was all done, one of the professors, not the one that examined me, came up to me. His name was Hi-Fi Trong. His name. And Professor Trong said, Bob, what's wrong? So I told him the stories. And he said, I'll tell you what, you sign up with me for the next time around, and I'll help you through. So I did. I signed up, went through it, and passed it that time without not nearly as much. But the point of that is, not to tell you how much I struggled, but the fact that when I poured out my heart with a group of other believers, and they prayed with me, Professor Trong heard what my need was, and he was the answer to that. Just knowing that somebody was encouraging me along to get through that exam again, besides my wife, was such a blessing. So I encourage you to get prayer partners. Join a triad or a group of people that you can pray with, and through them, I believe God speaks. So we have the power of prayer partners. The second thing is the power of prayer patterns. In chapter 6, we read of Daniel's getting older, things are moving along. Their new king named Darius takes over. Previously, King Belshazzar is killed. Darius, probably his real name is Gubra, is made governor, and he's appointed by Cyrus. So it really doesn't make any difference except the fact that there's a new king in place, okay? This new king appoints 3 governors in charge of the whole kingdom. And one of them, and particularly, chapter 6, let's see. Let's read this. And over these 3 governors, of whom Daniel was one, that the satraps might give account to them, so that the king would suffer no loss. Then this Daniel distinguished himself above the governors and satraps because of his excellent spirit was in him. And the king gave thought to setting him over the whole realm. So here's Daniel, once again. He is kind of standing out among all the rest. He's one of the 3 governors, and he's doing such a good job. King's not getting any loss, not cheating anybody. The other 2, they're trying to figure out a way to cheat the king so they can get more money. But Daniel's faithful to God, faithful to the king, and they say that they're jealous that he's going to be appointed even over them. All right. So this is what happens. Daniel's enemies, okay, which would be these other 2 satraps or governors. They make up a lie, and we read in verse 3 and 4. Then this Daniel distinguished himself. I read that part, verse 4. So the governors and the satraps sought to find some charge against Daniel concerning the kingdom. They couldn't find anything. He was a man of such great integrity, they couldn't find anything wrong with him, all right? How many of you could relate to that? Okay, all right. So they said something, or I can see from my glasses. They knew the charge against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find no charge or fault because he was faithful, nor was there any error or fault found in him. Then these men said, we shall not find any charge against Daniel unless we find it against him concerning the law of his God. Daniel distinguished himself so much in his relationship with God and in all of his activities and everything that he did, that these guys that were out to get him couldn't find anything wrong with him except, well, maybe we can get him to deny his own God in some way. All right? So, verse 6 or verse 10. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, I forgot what happens. Okay, get to the rest of the story. Are you following me there? Okay, all right. They go to the king and they say to the king, these bad guys, they say, how about for the next 30 days that no one can pray to anybody but you? And if they do, they get thrown in the lion's den. Cyrus says, hey, this sounds pretty good. Want to pray to me? I can't answer anything, but you go ahead and pray. And so they passed that law. When Daniel finds out about it, it says, now when he knew that the writing was signed with Medes and Persians, so it can't be broken down or rescinded, he went home. And in his upper room, with his windows open toward Jerusalem, he knelt down on his knees 3 times that day, and he prayed and gave thanks before his God, as was his custom since early days. What's wrong with this guy? He knows that if they catch him praying to anybody other than the king, he's going to be thrown in the lion's den. Daniel immediately goes home because he knows the answer to this whole problem is prayer. But why doesn't he just go in a closet someplace and hide and pray? Or why doesn't he just pretend that he's praying for 30 days? Why don't he, well, that's probably what I would have done. I would just faked it. But Daniel was a lot smarter than me. There's so much in this portion of Scripture, I don't have time to move on with it, but this is what I want to make the point. Daniel didn't let his circumstances and threats disrupt his daily communication with God. Now we all get real busy. I don't have, I don't have time to talk to God today. Hey, dear God, I hope you have a good day. Bless me. We get so busy, can't get time alone with God. But this is the trick. The secret to Daniel was that it said he had established his pattern for prayer at an early age. It wasn't something he just started. He says, oh, man, I got a big problem here. I don't like lions. And if I pray to anybody other than my God, I'm going to be thrown in the lion's den. I guess I better go talk to God about this one. Oh yeah, I haven't talked to him in a while, but maybe he'll remember me. See, that was the way with Daniel. He consistently talked with God 3 times a day. Probably was praying all day long. But he went home, opened the windows, just like he always did, and prayed towards Jerusalem, because that's where he hoped to go back someday, okay? And prayed, and he didn't care. Well, he probably cared, but he wasn't worried about what would happen. Here's what I want to tell you. Establish your prayer patterns early, so that when the difficult times come, it isn't difficult to pray. Got that? If we establish our prayer priorities and our time with God early on in our Christian walk, then when the big hard times come, it's not going to be difficult to go to God. You know what? I got this feeling that sometimes we wait for a big problem to come before we go to God. And then we go to Him and feel somewhat guilty because we've never talked to Him about other things, or it's just now that I'm going to. What would you think if the only time someone ever talked to you was when they wanted something from you? You would get to the point where you'd see them coming, and what would you say? Uh-oh, wonder what they want now. Okay? God desires us to be talking to Him all the time. So begin to get those prayer patterns early on in your life, so that when the difficulty times come, the most normal thing for you to do is to take it to God. Do it with a clear conscience, knowing that you've spent time with Him, and He will hear you. So Daniel, we discovered the power of prayer partners, we discovered the power of prayer patterns, and thirdly, the power of persistent prayer. Now, I don't know where if you've been keeping track with me, I've been all over the place here. Okay, so here's the setting for the third example of prayer with Daniel. Daniel's about 84 years old now. Moved on. Cyrus is king. Daniel has a vision, and the answer to that vision is disclosed to him 21 days after he's been praying. And so, Daniel chapter 10. Daniel chapter 10, verses 1 to 3. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a message was revealed to Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar. That was the name Nebuchadnezzar gave him, okay? The message was true, but the appointed time was long, and he understood the message and had understanding of the vision. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant food, no meat or wine came into my mouth, nor did I anoint myself at all, till the 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. So Daniel has this vision. This is kind of speaking after the point. It was the vision came to him, the answer came to him 3 weeks later, all right? And he's saying, this is what happened. I was walking along the side of the Tigris River. He looks up at verse 4. It says, now on the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was by the side of the great river, that is the Tigris, I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose waist was girded with golden ephod, whatever, and it gives a description of him. He looks up and he sees this man, okay? And this man comes and he talks to him. And he says in verses 12 to 14, then he said to me, do not fear, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, and behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I have been left alone there with the kings of Persia. Now I have come to make you understand what will happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision refers to many days yet to come. Here's what happened, okay? Daniel has this vision. He prays for 21 days. He's waiting and waiting for the answer to this vision that he had. Now, how many of you have prayed something and have been waiting for an answer? Anybody? The rest of you don't pray. Okay. That's fine. All right. You got to go back and establish some prayer patterns. Okay. All right. So for 21 days. Now he's walking along the Tigris River. This angel shows up and he says, Daniel, your prayer that you prayed 21 days ago was heard. So some of us sometimes think our prayers they're just bouncing off the ceiling because they haven't been answered. Well, that's not true. Immediately that you voice your prayer, God hears. But we find out that this answer to his prayer has been detained. He's gotten in a battle with the messenger that God sent to give Daniel the answer to his prayer, has been detained. He's in a battle with the prince of Persia, probably Satan, okay? And so he's been detained in getting there. Now here's my question. Daniel prayed for 21 days. What if he had quit on day 20 of praying? Well, if God's not going to give me the answer to this one, I guess I'll stop praying. Would he have gotten his answer? I don't know. That's just a hypothetical question. But we do know that he did keep praying, and the answer finally came. We don't know what is going on behind the scenes, is what I learned from this portion. There may be hindering factors of which a praying Christian knows nothing as he wonders if the answers to his requests are delayed or why they're delayed. Nevertheless, he is to keep on praying. We don't know what battles are being fought in the background, but you can be sure that your prayer has been heard. You say, if God's not listening to my prayer. No, he's heard your prayer. You can be sure your prayers have been heard. Persistence in prayer is not necessary because God's reluctance needs to be overcome. Oh, if I just keep pestering him, maybe he'll hear. Rather, it is necessary to train us in being faithful, patient, grateful. So sometimes God doesn't answer right away. We don't know what's going on in the background. You know, many of us here have been praying that we need more room, don't we? You're kind of crowded here today. Wait till the second shift comes in, okay? If we all were together, we wouldn't fit in here. And we don't know why God hasn't shown us what to do yet. Maybe the building that we're to purchase has not come up to buy yet. Maybe somebody else is going to buy a building and say, just give it to us. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on in the background, what battles are being fought. Maybe you want a new job. You keep praying for it. You say, God, give me a new job, give me a new job. And nothing happens. Well, maybe the new job that you've been praying for hasn't opened up yet. It's not available. Or perhaps you're looking for a mate and you keep praying, God, give me a husband, give me a wife. And God says, well, they're not born yet. You just haven't met them yet, okay? It's not time yet for you to meet that particular perfect one. A quick story with us. We were married a couple of years. We had our first child, and Jill. And I was thrilled to have a daughter, but what I really wanted was I wanted a boy. Okay, I love my daughters. And so we began to pray. Prayed year 1 for a boy, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nothing was happening. And I got to be honest with you, probably around year 6, I just gave up praying. But my wife didn't. She kept praying and praying. 8 years after Jill was born, our son was born. I don't know what was going on in the background, what was happening, but God knew. And he was preparing a son for us. And you guys should be really, really, really happy that my wife kept persistent in prayer, because it would not be commonplace today, okay? And I wouldn't have a son. You know, so many times we get discouraged in our prayers because they don't seem to be being answered. But God heard your prayer as soon as it was mentioned. And he's working in the background to bring the answer to you. Don't know when it will be or what it will be, but God is faithful. So from Daniel, I learned 3 principles about prayer. The power of prayer partners, the power of prayer patterns, and the power of persistent prayer. Now I want to ask you a final question. Are you a praying person? Are you a praying person? Or are you one of those that when something really bad comes up, then you run to God to ask for help? See, I think it takes more than intelligence and good looks and position and power to make it through this life. See, I believe it all begins with prayer. Maybe we'd be challenged by the life of Daniel in the area of prayer this morning. Let's pray. Father, Daniel was an amazing guy. At 84 years old, he was still faithful to you. He knew that whatever was to happen was only within your will. And so I thank you for his prayer life and what he teaches to us. We thank you, Lord, that you showed yourself powerful in that lion's den when he was thrown in. And that the prayer that he prayed was heard and answered. Lord, I don't know what prayers are being prayed in this church this morning. I don't know what needs are being voiced to you from the hearts of your people. But Lord, I do know that you're hearing them. And I pray that you will encourage them to be faithful, to maybe to lean upon somebody else for some help and encouragement. But I thank you that you are a prayer answering God. I pray this in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.